When you flatten chests, no double D's. When you lost your leg to diabetes. When you force that he, she, Sony please. Balls in a purse. Soulless cash grab gamers pissed. Bald diverse tick that checklist. Druckman miss with aim assist. You're in a hearse. Arches guide you home. Put the fries in the bag, cabron. We won't try to miss you. Press F, press F, press F, press S. Your comments locked, you show no love. So I put on my power glove. Right up your ass, this you can shove. Right up your bum. Hello, beta tester.
The power of independent, self-published studios to push this medium forward is a growing and I think positive theme in our industry.
To help this channel grow and help me bring consistent content, liking this video, commenting, and subscribing in case YouTube tries separating us makes a world of a difference. Deception. At 2025's year-ending Game Awards, Geoff Keighley took a minute to glaze Highguard, passionately needing you to believe that this is an indie darling, a new breed, like the old Titanfall stuff that you like. We promise it's from the same makers of Titanfall and Apex Legends, formulaic slop, tailor-made for the pronoun audience, and that's you, right, gamer? No, it isn't.
But what about Titanfall? You like that? These are the same makers. And what about Expedition 33? This is indie like that. Remember Baldur's Bale? Haha, meme. But Bale sex. This game has a Bale too. Arrow to the knee. Cake is a lie.
Tencent is worth 4.85 trillion HKD. But you, beta tester, should dig deep and support another flat-chested, unfinished Concord. My birthday approaches and I have bills to pay and an urge to beg like Darkside Phil on my channel every day. But in the same way that I wouldn't want to hear that, I factor it in to what I prepare and present to you because your time is precious and you deserve entertainment. Remember, all that cope that we heard from shills defending this glucking as hard as they freaking could. Highguard devs are geniuses. Yes, silence as a marketing strategy. Let Cyael dominate the conversation surrounding your game in a cesspool of queer gamers who might as well be blind next to me and my Sharingan. But I might have needed Byakugan for all of the palms I'm putting in my own face over these journalists salivating at this point over a website not working. In their hug box of a Discord full of psychopaths slurping this damn game, entities actually recognize that there are more people in there than playing the game. With other entities asserting maybe if everyone goes and buys microtransactions, they can save the game. I've been there and seen that with Marvel's Avengers, and some of those people are still angry at me as if the problem isn't something they discover were they to look inward. They're insufferable, and a curse would be exposure to them, to have to spend any time with them. But in their ignorance, they self-insert. They want other things that are like them, as if the world wouldn't tear itself apart, being forced to be in their proximity. It makes me wonder. Another revelation to put Geoff Keighley and his lucrative Tencent partnerships that he protects the investments of into perspective, so as the conspiracy theories and chud grifter topics become something normies suddenly see. Like an Activision Blizzard normie falling into the please talk about Overwatch trap. We've only just began picking at the scab that hinders progress in my beloved gaming space with a deceptive Dorito Pope scumbag who won't mention Sonic the Hedgehog or an indie game like Schedule 1 that manages 500,000 players, no marketing, because it's honestly just a show for he, him, and his gay friends. As far as Tencent and Geoff Keighley on top of the Pride.com, PC Gamer, IGN, and all its stepchildren gay jury that he fucks with, no Tencent Stephen Ma, Senior Vice President, holds a permanent seat on the Game Awards Advisory Board. Tencent owns many things in gaming, and it is not unreasonable to assert that they also own Keighley. So remember, everyone you see on Keighley's puppet show has a hand up their ass. Is this writing? Because it's probably better than what the bots like fucking Paul Tassi, and that's offensive to call Paul Tassi a bot because he is inferior to that we might assume AI is capable of in at the very least reading the room instead of filleting on your knees, getting that dick at the back of your throat for shit like fucking Marathon. You don't respect yourself, so that's an all of us thing now. The supposedly self-funded indie studio website is down. You cannot list Highguard as a YouTube game that you're playing, but the devs say fixing this is a low priority, just like distinguishing itself from all the other corpo slop and marketing itself was low on the priority list. Pronoun Posse desperately needs to jump into the conversation to tell you what isn't a Concord, but in only 16 days following its launch, layoffs, a new record. Most of the studio is gone. A skeleton crew remains. A man unironically named Joshy Poo takes to X to moan about how toxic gamers are to blame. Beta tester, imagine how much you might love more attention than the Super Bowl. 100,000 people playing your game when you could probably muster honesty enough to admit that you likely don't deserve that. Joshy Poo moans about millennial financial curses and golden handcuffs because they're not like other developers. They just create slop that is indistinguishable and are backed in fact by the same overlords.
What a little dick sucker.
Cyael clocked this Highguard developer entity retweeting one of the shills him would go on to personally thank in a list of people who were nice to him at the end of the word diarrhea that he called a response, he called reflection. And what I can only regard as the most Millhouse thing that I've ever seen out of a developer. Retweeted dare to bring up Marvel Rivals, as a single skin in a game like that could make more in an hour than Wildlight's Highguard could in its lifetime. But we're retweeting sentiment to Joshy Poo, out of touch developer, emphasizing, embodying, and illustrating the fundamental misunderstanding that makes Cyaels in the gaming space seem harsh and hostile, but the reality is, you don't belong here. There is a niche for you, but this stage is not for entities who can't see the problem with bland, bald, flat-chested, peg-legged, dyed hair, obese, milquetoast safe horny. So now gaming reaches the checkpoint we always keep reaching, where the things we've been discussing for years are suddenly not conspiratorial enough for normies to talk about, which should instantly class them a grifter or get them the death threats that we collect. But maybe they identify as a lady or have a Blue Sky account or think that children should transition and that therefore they get a free pass from the cult ruining everything. On X, I farted out that people's real issue is that they're old enough to remember gaming pre-queer. If it all started this gay and lame, it would have perished and no one would remember it, but it started great. And then came the race swaps, the chest flattening, the tamey, samey, sauce extraction, and you may not have noticed it, but your brain did. If my mouth is too much, it's because you suck. And I couldn't be more clear with the correct terms that I choose in classing the gay that I observe. From Mass Effect Andromeda's Saints Row reboots, 343's Halos. Bungie's marathons, Vampire Masquerade reboots, remakes, sequels, what do you want to call it? A sequel in name only. Honestly, every studio you can name, from your CD Projekt Reds and its DEI fellatio, to Naughty Dog, Sucker Punches, Insomniac Games, Guerrilla Games, New Rocksteadies. These studios used to make art before the soy and female activists infested them, and now they make sweet baby sensitivity slop for a modern audience. So Mystique has to be a 40-year-old hag who the own actress, in her own words, with respect to whatever their pronouns must be, because they agree with current thing, they look androgynous, their words. Harley Quinn is too feminine, says the transgender cheerleaders at Rocksteady. An ass is problematic, say the queers at Bungie, and Mass Effect developers, they agree at the nightmare that is BioWare. Before even Dragon Age the Veilguard, so they must navigate the camera away, even though they're so creatively bankrupt and non-existent that all they have is remaking what the straights made before them. Ask yourself, beta tester, would they navigate the camera away from a man's ass? IGN and the serial scrotum suckers like Stella Chung, who say woof because digital female character in a video game Lara Croft is now too pretty to she/her, demonstrates the hypocrisy time and time again. Not creative enough to make anything new, but the remakes need to be nerfed, castrated, toned down, and gayed up for this non-existent modern audience. But when it's gay, IGN can't stop retweeting and celebrating. Isn't venom thick, IGN says? The inches, right? So, bunny. They'll keep making Horizons. They'll keep demaking, because the remakes are the only thing that puts any freaking money on the table, and that's why they've reached deceiving you to try to collect your money. They'll do any and everything but appeal. Because in their infinite queerdom, the bright idea, even in the midst of their rampant remakes, is to extract the sauce, to remove the hetero, because male gaze and patriarchy and all that other retardation they inherited from Anita Poopskisian. Whatever demon ugly people in these studios with their insecurity are fighting in their endless shadow box is none of my fucking concern, because I am non-bi, B-U-Y, nary, and won't be purchasing any slop that signals itself as something you fucking creatures made. The big question is finally answered. How did a studio that supposedly slipped the surly bonds of a creatively bankrupt industry, hell-bent on chasing trends and uglifying everything, craft identical and damn near indistinguishable corpo slop? It's because they are one in the same. The call was coming from inside the studio. The hand of Tencent is inside the Geoff Keighley puppet. If you tell the truth, expect death threats because you're a chud, a grifter, a gooner, an incel. But you know what we don't need to do? Lie, deceive, trick people out of their money, because you are already selling these incomplete betas for people to test, but I'll place you inside an expanded domain that fucks you before you realize what's going on. I'm not deluding my audience, but they're desperately trying to do that to you. Do I need a roadmap, beta testers? We should feel bad for the devs according to what they have to say because they're too stupid and blind to see or listen. And they have expenses because they're the only ones with expenses, right? Me. Waste your time on unfinished slop, or your opinion is invalid, so saith the he-him IGN ex-IGN deep-throater, the man named Fran, who would do and say anything arching his back for attention because he's hoping to turn that drama into views, because without the drama, you wouldn't be able to generate them. Without it, you're nothing. I'm here to let you know, beta tester. None of these liars are owed your limited time, which I urge you to spend, not waste, on things and people who are deserving. Amir Satvat. They wish to celebrate him. Remember what they want to show you. Remember what they need you to see. Happy gaslighting Keighley kin who get lost and end up in my video. And even if you're not here, you'll be hearing the types of things that I've been having to say, repackaged and rearticulated, articulated real slow and real nice and kind words to tickle those balls because, ooh, some of y'all won't listen otherwise. In time, I'm sure their attempt will be to downplay that the funding is, quote, a big deal, end quote. But the fact that they know and refuse to disclose means something. Geoff Keighley is partnered with Tencent. And when people have partnerships, it's not unlike gambling sites that have these scandals arise because people don't disclose the partnership. I want to talk your head off, but I want this topic fresh in everyone's minds because of how hard Geoff Keighley applied himself to endorsing Highguard, the Tencent-backed bucket of slop at the Tencent Awards at the end of the year, supposedly for free, depending on the jizz-gargling games journalist that you listen to. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If we took half of you creatures at face value and applied your own rhetoric to you, you would end up in an obituary and we'd read about you blaming us in a note. Here's the video at the end of the Game Awards. Listen closely.
The power of independent, self-published studios to push this medium forward is a growing and I think positive theme in our industry.
Nope, I'm not going to give them the opportunity to strike it because that's how petty they are. I love you, and for as long as I'm allowed to speak on a platform like this with my limited audience but wider reach, I love you, and I hope to see more of you all soon. Gross.